What's up guys, Untitled Studios here, and today we are going to be doing a full in-depth re-review of the Shark Navigator Liftaway Xero Speed model ZU560. Now, I've been using this machine on and off for about 2 or 3 years now. I got it back in 2018, and I did review this once already, but after reviewing that review, no pun intended, and after getting some constructive feedback on the quality of that review and how useful it actually was in helping customers determine whether this machine was right for them, I've elected to redo this video. Now, this newer video is going to be a lot more in-depth and go a lot more into comparing this to other machines, as well as making sure that every aspect of usage of this machine is covered. So to get the obvious point out of the way, do I recommend this machine after it being in my rotation of vacuums for the last several years? And the answer is yes. Out of every Shark vacuum that I've used, this one is my favorite. So if you're watching this video and you have your mind dead set on a Shark and you're wondering which Shark do I recommend if I had to recommend any Shark out of all of them, this is my choice. The reason being is that it has a lot of the great features of the previous generation Navigator Liftaway, specifically this model. Now, this version of the Navigator Liftaway is the NV351 and NV352. This Xero version is very similar to that machine, only while it is a little bit more expensive, it has a lot of nice upgrades. The main upgrades being the build quality, being much better, center feed suction, self-cleaning brush roll, a much better designed filtration system and dust cup setup, and overall just a more refined and more durable design, specifically with increases in quality to the wheels, to the hoses, and to the hard floor cleaning performance. Now, there are some disadvantages, and we will discuss that in the comparison, but for now, we're going to move on from this introduction to a main overview of the machine, where I'll show you how to use everything on it and show off how the general machine is. So apologies if the audio quality gets a little bit squirrely as I step closer to the machine. I am working on getting a dedicated mic set up to help with this. But in the meantime, here's the machine. So looking at this particular unit comes in a blue color, and it is also available in a red color, which is nearly identical. In most configurations, the red color comes with a few extra attachments, so keep that in mind. This blue one only comes with one attachment. This particular attachment does come with this blue unit, but if you buy the red unit, it also comes with a crevice tool and dusting brush combo tool. Unfortunately, one of my complaints with this, as you can see, I kind of have a little jerry-rigged solution right here. This machine only has one attachment peg, and if you look at the last generation Liftaway, it actually has an attachment peg that you can store an attachment on either side, so you can store 2 attachments on board. On this, you only have the one. Now, I happen to have an extra attachment set and the adapter from one of those old Liftaways, so I kind of just put it there and use this to hold this in place. Now, this obviously flops around like crazy, but this is a way where you can get all 3 attachments on board: a crevice tool, a dusting brush, and an upholstery tool. And this upholstery tool does work pretty well. I'll discuss that more later. So, looking at the front of the machine, we have the power head right here with the Xero technology. You can see if we lift this down, we have a little felt squeegee right here in order to improve with hard floor pickup performance. We have our brush roll with the fins that are supposed to help keep it clean. There are combs on the inside that are supposed to comb off the brush roll and keep hair off of it. And assuming the combs aren't broken, they actually work rather well. We have some rubber-coated wheels right here. One great feature that I really like in any vacuum is when they have rubber-coated wheels. We have 3 little screw tabs right here where you can lift this up and access the brush roller. You can't remove the brush roller, but you can at least get to it in case you get something jammed in here. Then on the side, we have the button right here. It's kind of hard to see with this attachment, but there's this little lock button right here, and you push that, it stays in place, and now you can lift the entire assembly away from the cleaner head. This is for whenever you want to use it in liftaway mode. And whenever you want to put it back, you just simply put it back on. Can be tricky to line up, and click it right into place. Then if we turn it around here, we have our hose, which removes with this button right here. So if we need to pop that off for clogs, there's a little button right here that removes the wand. Sometimes likes to get stuck. Oh, probably because the cord's in the way. So that's another thing. You have to make sure that the cord is off of the cord clip, otherwise you can't remove the wand. You can remove the hose, but not the wand. Once we pull the wand out, we can see there's a little clip right here. This is actually a really nice feature. This is something the old lift-away doesn't have. I've complained about that a lot on the old lift-away. They added a nice little clip right here so it keeps the hose out of the way. Really nice feature. Then there's this little button right here. You push this and the wand comes off. And then now if you want to use it in lift-away mode and you push that button again, now you can carry this whole canister with you and just use the hand tools. We also have a suction control slider right here, so you can simply control this. Another feature that I do really like about this machine, Shark has a lot of these suction control sliders, and unfortunately it's not very common on vacuums in this price range. That is another feature that I do like. Up here on the wand we have a cord clip which is reversible, so we can pop this down to easily remove the cord, and we have a cord clip right here, but again, if you do use that, you have to pull the cord out of it in order to pull the wand out. I've heard some people complain about that, but personally I would much rather have this than not have a cord clip at all, because there's no requirement for you to use it, and it's there for the people who want it. Again, this pops right up. It sounds kind of finicky. After so many years, it sounds like the spring in there is going out, but it does hold just fine, even if it does sound a little bit creaky. So this wand again just pops right back in. Fairly simple. And the hose pops in the top. The attachments fit onto the end of the hose or the wand. They actually fit over. Sharks use a custom attachment fitting, unfortunately, so buying third-party accessories is out of the question. You have to buy Shark-specific attachments. So if you bought one of these machines and it didn't come with enough attachments to suit your liking, you're going to have to buy Shark attachments, at least Shark-branded attachments, as opposed to being able to buy any off-the-shelf attachment. Those aren't going to work. This is not a standard inch and a quarter fitting. It's Shark's own fitting, so keep that in mind if you do want to purchase accessories for this machine. Hose pops in. Clip pops in right there. You hear the thing kind of creaks a lot for whatever reason, but it has stayed together in one piece. The cord comes out right here on the main motor unit. There's another cord hook down here, but this one is not reversible. This one is completely static. It just stays in place. And again, you can put the cord back in this cord clip, which I like to do. Then looking on the front, right here where this red button is, this is the power button. So whenever the vacuum's plugged in, if you put it on the 1 setting, that turns on the machine, and if you turn it on the 2 setting, that turns on the carpet mode. Now, whenever you have the machine upright, the brush roll is off no matter what. And when you have the machine reclined back, the brush roll is on no matter what. So if you have it in bare floor mode, this brush spins very, very slowly so it can help scoop up debris. And when you're in carpet mode, it spins a lot faster to actually agitate the carpet. That is something that has confused some people. This brush roller does not shut off in bare floor mode like the previous generation Navigator. It just simply spins slowly. But I have yet to see any evidence of it actually scratching floors, so in my opinion that doesn't seem to be a problem. And the actual bare floor performance on this is far better than the non-Xero lift-away that I just referenced. So if you have one of those and you're wondering if you should upgrade to this and you're concerned about bare floor performance, this is a solid upgrade. We have a little indicator light right here on the power head as well. And like I said, switching this switch does switch it between it being in bare floor and carpet mode. If you want to remove the dust cup, there's a small switch right here on the back on both sides. You can simply pull that and the entire dust cup pops off. There's 2 buttons to empty the dust cup from both sides. There's this bottom button, which obviously I won't show you right now, but I'll show that later. There is this button right here, which allows you to empty the top of the container and also get anything out of it that's stuck in this cyclone right here. We'll do that later again. And once you put all this back together, you can simply pop it back on. But first, 2 filters right here. So there's this premotor filter. I recommend washing this about every 3 times that you empty the container. Same with this one. Although this one obviously doesn't get as dirty because it's underneath the other filter. If you do wash both of these, you want to make sure to wash it in warm water with any soap or mild detergent that you choose. Persil is what I recommend. And make sure these filters are completely rinsed out until the water runs clear. Make sure any soap residue is washed out of these filters, and make sure to let these dry for at least 48 hours, and make sure they are bone dry, just as dry as before you wash them, before you put them back into the machine. Now the good news is you can find replacement filters very easily for this machine if you do want to have a set on standby while you wash the set that just came out of your machine. I will link those in the description. And then underneath here, we have this filter. We just press this button right here. This pops out. And there's this Hepa filter. This Hepa filter is not washable, and you should change this Hepa filter about every year or two, depending on your usage. So it pops out, and you can very easily replace it. That, of course, just pops right back in, just like that. And then this simply slides up and clicks into place. Then this pre-motor filter has a little tab right there. Push this back in. If there's any dust on this little bit right here, I recommend leaving this filter in and then wiping it out, so if any of that stuff falls, it falls on this filter and not into the motor. Then we can put both these filters back in, again assuming they are dry. If you have another vacuum, you can also vacuum these off, but they still eventually should be washed and eventually replaced. If you do wash these about every 3 uses, I still recommend replacing these once they get discolored to the point where they start to tear. Once they start to tear, you want to replace them. And then this canister, of course. You line it up right here. Lining it up can be a little bit tricky, but once you put it back on, click it back into place, and now it is ready to go. So that's about everything as far as just the basic usage of your machine. And of course, if you want to recline the machine, you just simply put your foot right on the base, and that allows you to recline it to vacuum with it. So now we're going to move on to the part of the review where I talk about my likes and dislikes of this machine, as well as my experience of using it for the past few years. Now, first thing I'm going to mention is something that caused a little bit of confusion in my last review, and that was my experience with Shark and my opinions on them in regards to their reliability and their warranty system. This caused some confusion in my last review because I didn't do the best job at articulating what I actually meant in terms of repairability. I pointed out in that review how when I got this machine it was entirely non-functional. The reason being is that the power head worked just fine, but the main motor was not turning on. Whenever I turned on the machine, the only motor that activated was the brush roll motor for the brush roll. So the brush roll was spinning, but there was no suction motor turning on at all. It's like they were separate entities, which they technically are, and the actual main motor was not getting any sort of power. Now, Shark actually fixed this problem very, very easily. I contacted them, and they sent me a brand new motor assembly that also came with brand new filters. I simply popped that onto this machine. Because of the lift-away function and everything snapping together, it was very easy to replace that portion. The color does vary slightly, but doesn't really bother me. And since then, the machine has worked perfectly fine and hasn't had any real issues. So some people see that and think, well, that's great, so why are you complaining about the repairability of it? Well, the reason being is that if you have a Shark and your main suction motor goes bad, then you shouldn't have any problems. Shark should take care of you. The 5-year warranty that this machine has covers that, no problems. If you contact Shark because your machine's main suction motor went out, you should have no problems having this portion of the vacuum replaced for free under warranty with no money out of pocket. And that part of Shark's warranty is excellent. Don't have to go to any sort of repair centers, you just get the part shipped directly to you, and all is good. However, one big problem with Shark's design on this machine is with the Xero technology cleaner head. Now, the technology of it is really good. It does a great job at resisting hair tangles, and I will talk about that in the things that I like about this machine later on. But that's the main point. It resists hair tangles, it cleans itself, and it does a great job at it. Although some people do get a little bit confused about that feature, so I'll explain that a little bit later. But for now, it does work. But the problem is that the way this cleaner head is designed, the customer does not have any access to the brush roller in terms of removing it, either to clean it, or to service it, or to get to the belt, or to get to the motor in this cleaner head. None of that is accessible. So if you have one of these cleaner heads and any part of it fails, be it the hose that goes between the cleaner head and the main body right here on this part, if this hose splits, or if the actual motor in here dies, or if the brush roll seizes up and stops spinning, or the belt breaks, or these little wheels fall out, if you have any issues with this power head, Shark will not provide you that part, even if you are willing to pay for it. They simply do not make parts available. Shark refers to them as parts of parts, quote unquote, but they won't sell you anything other than whole assemblies, like the entire motor assembly, the wand, the entire hose with the handle, and the entire cleaner head assembly. Now this would be fine outside of the fact of it being a little bit wasteful, but it would still be fine from a customer's perspective if you didn't care at all about the environment and you just wanted to get it fixed, even if you had to throw away a bunch of pieces that were fine. But the problem is that the cleaner head is not covered under warranty because Shark considers it a wear item. Because they consider the brush roll a wear item, which most companies do, that's not normal, they then take the fact that they don't make the brush roll accessible and make you pay for an entirely new cleaner head when the brush roll wears out for any particular reason. Which means at some point in this machine's life, now it may not be very soon, it may be 10 years down the road. This machine, like I said, has been working for 2.5 years, and I've had it obviously secondhand, so whoever had it previously also used it, and it is still working fine. The cleaner head has not died yet. But I have had that happen where they have died on Sharks. So if that happens to you, then you are required to pay the over $100 that it costs to replace this cleaner head, plus shipping, even if you are within that 5-year warranty. So while the 5-year warranty is great on this, don't think it covers everything. It mainly just covers the suction motor, and that's it. So if your suction motor goes bad, or any part of the motor assembly, like if the cord splits, or if the actual housing cracks, then you shouldn't have a problem replacing the main motor. But if you have any issues with this power head, you are on your own. And the fact that you can't replace the brush roll also means that you have to waste an entire part and replace the entire cleaner head assembly, even if only one part of it is damaged. That's very wasteful, and I don't like that. That is something that I wish Shark would address in a lot of their machines. And in the previous generation Navigator lift-away, this wasn't a problem because you could very easily remove the brush roll, access the belt, access the motor, and everything. Nowadays, you need a special security Torx bit to get to it, but you can still get to it. On this machine, you can't easily get to this brush roller, and Shark has designed a lot of these cleaner heads to where even if you do manage to pull it apart enough to get to the brush roll, you're not going to be able to get it back in and get everything functioning properly. So that's the biggest thing to watch out for with this Shark vacuum is the cleaner head. Now the good news is, since this is a self-cleaning brush roll, you generally shouldn't have to worry about hair wrapping up around this unless the actual combs that remove the hair off the brush get damaged. And while many people have reported that as being a problem, that's not a problem that I've struggled with myself on any of my self-cleaning brush roll Shark vacuums, and I have several. So if you're nice to it, it shouldn't be an issue. Obviously don't suck up coins or nails or screws or anything crazy like that, and you shouldn't have a problem. Another little issue that I found with this is, as you can see, there are 3 little screw heads right here. They're very similar to a Dyson. You just take a coin and turn these little bits and lift this cover up if you need to access the main inlet to get to any clogs or to clean it, and that is fine. But you have no way of accessing this top cover. So as you can see on my unit, this top cover is filthy. And because I can't remove the brush roll, there's no way for me to remove this top cover or even remove the brush roll to get access to this top cover to clean it. So if something gets stuck in here, like if you get a pebble or a rock or a Lego or something like that stuck in here, there's not much you can do. And that's very unfortunate because if you have a machine like a Bissell or a Dyson or a Xero where you can service the brush roller yourself, then that makes it a lot harder to recommend a Shark for longevity's sake. And the other issue with it is that the whole thing does kind of creak a little bit, but that's not too big of a deal. That's my biggest dislike with this Shark, is the way the brush roller is designed. The actual Xero technology on this brush roller, the self-cleaning part, is excellent, and it's done a great job at resisting hair tangles. Now, a little piece of advice there is that if you suck up a lot of very long hair, it will wrap around this brush roller. So you can't just suck up a bunch of hair and then shut it off and expect it to all be off the brush. I've seen some people leave negative reviews for this machine because they don't really understand how that works. And that's part of the reason why Shark changed the marketing on this. It used to be Xero as in zero maintenance. Now they refer to it as the self-cleaning brush roll, which is a lot more accurate. Because since there are little combs on the inside of the housing right here where the brush roller is, and you can see little fins there too to help keep hair from tangling too far on the brush, it means that if you get hair tangled around this brush, you simply keep using it and allow the brush to keep spinning, and it will eventually comb off all the hair. So that is really nice, and that is something where once you get used to it, it actually is a really nice feature because you never have to clean the hair off the brush. Now, stuff can still get stuck in here. Like I mentioned, if you suck up a Lego or a screw, that can still get stuck in there. Or if you suck up a twist tie or a dryer sheet, just like any other vacuum, it's not going to find a way to get that through. That's going to get stuck and you're going to have to remove it. But as far as actual hair, especially if you have a lot of long-haired people in your house and you've had a lot of issues with your long hair hurting a lot of your vacuums and making it hard to take care of, this might be a pretty good option for you. Sorry for my throat being a bit squirrely. Now, that's the biggest negative, and it sounds like that's a pretty big negative because I talked about it for quite a while, right? Well, it is, but the good news is that outside of that, there's actually a lot of positives about this machine that I really like. First off, it is bagless, which is kind of a mixed bag for me, no pun intended, because generally bag machines have better filtration and last a lot longer, but they also tend to have more running costs. So there is a bit of a trade-off there. A lot of people like bagless nowadays, and there are ways to empty this canister without it poofing a lot of dust back into your room, either by emptying it outside, emptying it deep into a trash can, or even just simply rinsing it out and washing all the dirt out of it into your toilet or something like that. There are other options. And the entire machine does have a Hepa filter and is a completely sealed system, which means that you're not going to be letting dust and all that stuff back into the air. Now, as long as you keep up to date on your filter maintenance, that will stay true. But that is definitely a feature that I really like about this machine. One thing that I don't like is the cord. Now, the cord, I mean, in itself is fine. It's a cord. It supplies power to the machine from the electrical outlet, as cords tend to do. My biggest problem is with the length, because this vacuum is usually around $200 depending on where you find it. Sometimes it can be low as $180, and sometimes it can be upwards of $250. And you only get a 25-foot cord, which in my opinion, 25-foot cords are unacceptable on any vacuum in any price range. That's a bit of a hot take. I feel that 30 feet is the bare minimum no matter what the price range is, but especially if it's over $100. And this machine, it's only 25 feet. I wish the cord was a lot longer. Now the good news is, you obviously can add an extension cord. It's generally not recommended by most people, but you can add an extension cord to make the cord longer. It's just another thing you have to deal with, and it's a lot less convenient than simply having a longer cord. Now, the last generation Navigator lift-away without the Xero M, that's right next to me, that also has a 25-foot cord. But this higher-end Shark Apex, as well as this Dyson Ball Total Clean right here, all have 30-foot cords, and those cords obviously last a lot longer. 5 feet doesn't sound like it makes a ton of difference, but trust me, it does. Especially if you live in a house like I do, where it's not the biggest house in the world, but it doesn't have very many outlets, so you really need to stretch out the ability for your vacuum to get into a lot of places as you can. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to struggle with using a lot of extension cords, and that's just not very smart electrically. So that is something to keep in mind. If you need a cord that's longer than 25 feet and you're not okay with an extension cord, this probably isn't the best option for you. But if you don't mind, if you have a smaller home or you're willing to use extension cords, then it might not be a problem. One other thing that I don't like about this machine when compared to the last gen Navigator lift-away is the hose. Now I mentioned that it has the hose hook, which is a very nice feature, but this hose doesn't stretch nearly as much. You can see whenever I remove this hose, I can stretch it all the way while still sitting down. I'm not even standing up, and this hose is completely stretched out. If I try to pull it any further, the vacuum starts to tip over. Now, of course, for this machine, it's not the biggest in the world because the idea is that you use the lift-away function, and you simply press this button and carry it. But having to hold this entire thing in your hand, while it's easier than it is on the Apex, which is borderline unwieldy, it still is a lot more awkward than having something like the Dyson, where you can just easily stretch out the hose and leave the machine sitting on the ground. So that is something that is not good. But again, since you do have the lift away, if it's something that you don't mind carrying the machine around with you, then it's something that you could probably deal with. But the previous generation Navigator, the hose actually stretches a lot further despite it being a much cheaper unit. Now, the advantage to that is that this hose is built a lot better. A lot of these early last-gen Navigators, specifically this one, A lot of the early ones had issues with the hoses splitting after a few years. These newer ones have addressed that problem, but this one just isn't that great. Now, if you get one of the newer ones that's in a green or a light blue color that has a black hose, that hose is basically identical to this Xero M machine. So if you're comparing this Xero M to the newer version of this unit with the same black hose, then the hoses are obviously about the same, but they're still a little bit longer on the older unit. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, this is also clear on this particular one, but to me that's not really a selling point because it gets dirty immediately and you can't see anything in it anyways. So that's not a selling point for me. But what is a selling point is the fact that the Xero M version has center feed suction. This one, the actual hose is all the way on the side of the machine, so the cleaning path is significantly more uneven. Whereas on this machine, much like the Dyson, it's in the center. So the cleaning path is going to be a lot more even, and you'll have a lot more balanced cleaning whenever you're trying to clean your carpets. The other thing is that both these machines do clean very well on carpets. For a Shark, they clean better than this Apex. This Apex doesn't clean all that very well on carpets compared to these two, which is not great because it's significantly more expensive. But I found that the bare floor performance on this Speed Xero M is actually very, very good because both this Shark Apex and this Dyson Ball Total Clean right here, both of these machines are significantly more expensive than this Shark. They're at least $50, if not $100 to $150 more expensive, depending on where you find these. And both of these have their own advantages. The Apex does much better with fine and large debris because of the soft roller, and the Dyson does a lot better with crevice pickup because it has more sealed-in suction. This Shark, while it doesn't do better than both per se, it is significantly cheaper and it strikes a nice balance between the two. It does much better at crevice pickup and at picking up fine debris than the previous generation Navigator liftaway, and it does better with crevice pickup as well. And since it has that felt seal, it just overall does better at picking up on floors, just in every way imaginable. Of course, there's no real way for large debris to get in here, but the Apex isn't that much better anyways, and then you add the step of having to maintain that soft roller. This one has no soft roller to worry about, so it's one less thing to have to keep track of. And of course, if you do encounter large debris like dog food or cat food or something like that, you can always pick it up with the wand. So it's not like you have no way of picking up large debris on bare floors. It's just something to keep in mind. So, with all that in mind, is there anything else that I can think of as far as the things that I like and dislike about it? Well, I've already mentioned that I like the suction control, and oh, one other thing is that I found that all three of these Sharks, because of the fact that the motor is above the cleaner head assembly, and you actually end up holding some of that weight in your hand, which means while both of these two Sharks, and even this Shark Apex are technically lighter in overall weight than this Dyson actually is a lot easier to use on any type of flooring because the motor is inside the ball, which means that all the weight that's in the motor is sitting on the floor and not in your hand like it is on these. Because on these, the motor is actually pulling down, and that's pulling down and increasing the handle weight. It's not a huge difference, but it is enough to where the Dyson is about even in terms of its usability in the hand when compared to these two Sharks, and it's significantly better than the Apex. I find the Apex to be very bulky in the hand and very tiring after a short period of time. And for my usage, the Dyson is much better than the Apex because there's less weight in the hand and it cleans much better on carpets. Now the Dyson does clean better on carpets than both of these Sharks, but it is pretty close. And some users have reported that with this Dyson that there are some types of sealed back or low carpeting, or some also say high carpeting, it depends on who you ask, that this Dyson just tends to bog down on, whereas Sharks don't seem to have that problem. Now, I'm not sure how much of a problem that is because I've owned several new Dysons and I've used them on a million different types of flooring, and I have yet to run into that issue of the brush roll bogging down. And in every scenario where I do run it on carpets, it cleans better than all these Sharks. But if that's something that you just don't want to risk that happening, especially if you're doing something like running a cleaning business where you're running into a lot of carpeting and you're dead set on either a Dyson or a Shark, then if you don't want to risk the Dyson bogging down on certain carpets, maybe a Shark is a better deal, even if it doesn't do quite as well on carpets. So obviously a lot of people use Sharks commercially for whatever reason. I assume because of the versatility. And this machine I have used in some light commercial settings, and it has held up very well. So credit where credit is due, this machine has been pretty solid. Now, one last complaint that I have is that the way this handle is, it's a little bit loose, in case you can't tell. Now, it still holds in just fine, but I do worry about the longevity of this handle because every time you push and pull it, you're putting pressure on this connector right here. And that's something that newer Dysons don't struggle with like the older ones did because the handle and the wand is a separate piece. On this, it's all one, same thing like an older Dyson. So I do worry about this potentially breaking. I know on the Apex, they have a lot of problems with breaking, and that's actually why I had to replace the handle and the wand on my other Apex. So I do think this is a more reliable choice than the Apexes. You don't get power lift away and you don't get duo clean, but this is a lot less complicated of a design, so it makes it overall more reliable. So another thing, well, I guess I kind of touched on this earlier, but between these two units, if you have the older lift away and you see this newer lift away and you're wondering should you upgrade, but you're wondering is it going to be that much heavier like the Apex is, it's not. This machine is about a pound heavier both in terms of overall weight and weight in the hand. It's a little bit heavier, but it's virtually identical. And this older Navigator was already very lightweight and very easy to use. And I think that the creature comforts that you get with the design of this definitely makes up for that extra pound or so. Like you have the better dust cup design, you have the better hose design. I've mentioned obviously a lot of this earlier in the review. So that is pretty much it. You still have rubber coated wheels. I think I mentioned that earlier. This is the point where I'm starting to repeat myself a little bit because I want to make sure that I don't miss any piece of important information that could be valuable in your decision on whether or not you want to buy this machine. So with that in mind, I think I've covered pretty much everything. So for your $200 or for my $200, is the Shark Navigator Liftaway Xero M Speed a good option? In my opinion, yes. If you are dead set on buying a Shark and you're looking at these three Sharks or any other Shark, you know, Dyson, anything else like that, that's out of your consideration, you've decided you want a Shark, then this is the Shark in my opinion to get. Because it strikes a great balance between carpet cleaning performance, bare floor performance, longevity, having less to deal with in terms of cleaning out the brush roller, and it still doesn't have a lot of the usability problems that the Apexes have. So while the cord is a little bit short and there's no LED headlights, there is a version that has a longer cord, LED headlights, and a bigger bin. I believe it's under the Rotator name. I wanted to get one of those because I think that would probably be the ultimate Shark, but I can't seem to find one. But if you could somehow get one of those, that would definitely be my choice as well. But even without the headlights and a longer cord, this is still an excellent machine. And while it's not my daily driver per se, because this Dyson does do better at cleaning carpets and I like the tools on the Dyson better, this is certainly a machine that's in my rotation, specifically because of how versatile it is and how I can just kind of, since I spent no money on this, I can throw it around and not worry too much about damaging it. And so far, it's held up just fine. So, with that said, this is my full, in-depth, long-term review of the Shark Navigator Liftaway Xero M model ZU560. And overall, I think I've said everything there is to say about this machine. So my last review, a little bit less positive, a little bit more convoluted, a little bit less helpful. Hopefully this one answered any questions that you have about this machine. And if there is anything that I missed, because I'm sure there's something that I missed, then please feel free to drop it in the comments below. Ask any questions you have. I've used this machine long enough I can answer pretty much any question you would have about this. And if there's something I somehow don't know, then I'm sure it's something that I can figure out. So, this is Untitled Studio signing out with my long-term review of the Shark Navigator lift-away Xero M model ZU560. And I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a good one. And like I said, I will drop links to filters and, well, that's about it. But I'll drop links to filters and this machine in the description if you are interested. And I'll drop links to all these other machines that I featured as well, in case you're interested in those as well.